Pixar has certainly built a well-known reputation of making excellent animated films. There are varying opinions and arguments as to which Pixar film is the best. However, this year's Inside Out stands out as what could be the best Pixar film of all time. To find out why, first, let's look at what happened before the film was released. Before the release of Inside Out, Pixar suffered from what some would call a fall from grace. In 2012, Brave received favorable reviews, but it released in the midst of Cars 2 and Monsters University, both of which are widely considered to be the worst films Pixar has ever made. This left the following year, 2014, the first year in a decade where Pixar didn't release a film at all. Cut to October 2014, with the release of the first trailer for Inside Out. This teaser trailer composed primarily of clips from previous Pixar films. Pixar did this as if to compare Inside Out to the other Pixar films and let the audience know that Inside Out was going to match up to the excellent quality of Pixar's greatest films. As time went on, it became more and more obvious that Pixar thought very highly of Inside Out and expected it to do well. Inside Out became the Pixar film to have the most sneak peeks and previews released in order to build anticipation for its theater debut. Inside Out was in development for around 5 years, and through all that time, the studio faced many struggles, but still pressed on because they had so much faith in the film. For a long time, the film floated around in the early stages of development with nothing but a simple concept. There was a point where they didn't have any idea what they were actually going to do, or even what direction they were going to take the film. But, after many story revisions and refinements of ideas, Pixar settled on the story that we got in this film.
We had an idea where Riley, basically the whole movie was about whether she was going to buy a bag of lime potato chips. What? There's a lot of stuff we just didn't go with because it was just too weird.
Random thoughts!
I remember their first version of it, Riley was knocked out through the whole movie.
We used to have a story for Riley where it was about her wanting to be part of a turkey pageant.
Turkey, turkey, turkey time!
We weren't sure what exactly she was trying to do.
We have no idea what we're doing.
And it was at that point that I realized this film isn't working.
In the film, a young girl named Riley moves with her family to San Francisco and begins to miss the way things used to be, all while already dealing with the emotions involved with growing up. Meanwhile, the personified emotions inside her head find it difficult to keep her happy throughout everything that has been going on, and end up going on a journey through her subconscious that eventually leads them to discover something that changes the way that they help her deal with emotions from then on out. That is the basic plot, however the story involves so much more. Upon its release, Inside Out got superb reviews across the board and became a smash hit. But why? What made it resonate with audiences so well? First, let's examine the concept of this film, also known as the setting. The concept was something that it could have made or broken this film. Thankfully, Pixar put a lot of thought into how they handled representing the interaction between a person and their personified mind. While working on the film, the people at Pixar consulted with neuroscientists and psychiatrists in order to help them properly depict the mind.
I ended up talking quite a bit with Pete Docter, the director, and Ronnie Del Carmen, the co-director, and I was astonished at how seriously they took the science. I was getting emails about dopamine and teenage emotion and all these crazy things.
So sadness is about reunion.
Physiological.
We talked to a bunch of neuroscientists.
Bring people together to repair. It's really interesting.
And the thing that we learned early on is some of the initial story ideas that we had in terms of short-term and long-term memory, they turned out to actually be fairly correct. For example, during the
Thankfully, after all that time and effort, Pixar pulled off the film's concept in a brilliant way. The ways the emotions interact with Riley are very logical and actually make sense. Viewers can easily watch Inside Out and say to themselves, yeah, I could see that going on inside my mind.
You know what I've realized? Riley hasn't had lunch, remember?
Hey, I saw a pizza place down the street. Maybe we could try that.
Pizza sounds delicious.
Which is so smart. It's so interesting, the metaphors and parables and the situational circumstance that happen to ultimately explain an emotional state. How a happy memory turns into a sad memory. How you're kind of in the zone sometimes and you're just like off your game. The movie does it so well and so smart. The only word I can describe it is genius. This is a genius movie. I love this.
However, the concept alone was not the only thing that made this film excellent. Pixar took Inside Out the extra mile by turning it into a film that has the power to take viewers on an emotional journey. After all, what's more emotional than a film about emotions? On the lighthearted side of things, Inside Out acts as an excellent ensemble comedy filled with funny moments spread throughout the entire film. In their review of the film, IGN said that Inside Out features one of Pixar's funniest scripts to date.
Laughing so much in this movie, but sometimes it was because the movie was being funny. Sometimes it was just like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense as to what goes on in the recesses of someone's mind. You can't help but just applaud the makers of this movie. In that, I feel like adults are gonna like this movie more than kids. It's a rarity among animated films, but it does exist. Seriously.
The 5 emotions in Riley's mind reflect and act out emotional stereotypes that everybody has experienced. Much of the reason that Inside Out is so funny is because it's so relatable. And that's what makes Inside Out so special. It can make a connection with basically anybody who has ever experienced emotion. Even that grumpy guy in the back of the theater who doesn't want to be there can relate to this movie. Now, while Inside Out is certainly a very funny movie, it's also filled with moments of much deeper emotion. IGN even said that it was possibly Pixar's most adult story to date. There are several key moments in the film that could get almost anybody to shed a few tears. By the end of the film, Inside Out teaches a valuable lesson about how people deal with their emotions that can benefit both parents and children alike. Aside from its main message about emotions, Inside Out manages to make every little moment in life seem important. The emotion that we feel during a given scenario affects how we remember that event. Joy, arguably the central character of the entire film, has the goal of finding the silver lining in every situation in order to create happy memories for Riley. When she fails at this, and some of Riley's memories are overcome by negative emotions, it's very upsetting to her. While watching the film, the audience may even begin to feel the same way. And that's another thing about Inside Out. It's a film that manages to have a lasting impact on viewers. Whether they're imagining what emotion is at the controls of their mind in the days to come, or reminiscing about every time they've been happy, sad, mad, afraid, or disgusted, viewers will certainly be thinking about this film for a long time. Early on, Pixar had a lot of faith in Inside Out, and all of their hard work paid off because what they made turned out to be a brilliant film that provides an entertaining look into the mind and takes viewers on a journey across all sides of the emotional spectrum. While 2014 may have seen an absence of Pixar films, they will actually be releasing 2 films this year. Aside from Inside Out, Pixar is releasing The Good Dinosaur towards the end of November. While The Good Dinosaur certainly shows promise of being a great movie, it's hard to imagine any Pixar film of the past or the future topping the level of excellence that Inside Out achieved. Even the man John Lasseter himself had this to say about Inside Out.
You know, when people look back at the history of Pixar, Inside Out could very well be our most important film we've ever made.